Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and yes, time to get a bit serious. I'm back from BlizzCon, and of course the number one thing that was driving me up the wall because I had no idea I'd done it is that in my melee DPS comparison I did in fact forget, flat out forget, as I explained on Twitter, to include warriors. I don't know how, I don't know why. All I can say is that I was catching a flight on the same day, and that was the last video I had to finish up in terms of doing audio, and therefore I thought I'd done it. I absolutely thought I'd done it. I had all the footage and notes in front of me, but for some reason, probably my mind wandered for whatever reason while I was producing it. I did create a little silly video just to answer the question because people were curious at just the number, but you guys do deserve to know why I believe that. Why I believe that, because it got a relatively high ranking. I did put it in at number 3 on the melee, just above the DK. And yeah, it is important that we actually get that out there, even for the sake of satiating the curiosity, as it was apparent. It was apparent how angry some people were that I did skip it out, and I understand that. To skip one class, and that class being something I was particularly fond of over the course of the alpha and the beta. It was silly of me to do that, so I can only apologise. I really can only apologise, but hopefully I can rectify that now for you. And of course, it's a little bit late, I understand that, but still, for my own peace of mind, almost, I want to get this done. I ranked them at number 3. They would, depending on which class I would have favoured, or spec I would have favoured more, they would have been either way down at the bottom or number 1. Number 1. Fury is something that not only do I hold a lot of nostalgia for, gotta be said, so much nostalgia there to playing the classic Fury. And as somebody who played classic Fury, it really is a coming home for me in the style it works now, and I'm absolutely overjoyed by how it plays right now. I'm on the team that really did not like Colossus Smash at all. I didn't feel it had a place, and the prevalence of Colossus Smash in that everything you did as a Fury Warrior pretty much revolved around Colossus Smash, this one particular window where you were blowing your load and being very meticulous about how you planned that, went against Fury for me. It did go against Fury. Now, I don't put much stock or faith in the original descriptions of the classes. I think we can all agree that written descriptions that were wrote, what, 10 years ago now, are in fact somewhat out of date. Yeah, that's a pretty fair assumption that they're somewhat out of date. Not all of them, but some of them don't really make sense, and I agree with the various comments that we shouldn't be abiding by them, you know, strictly. Absolutely strictly abiding by them in a modern era. I totally agree with that. But I do feel that Fury, particularly, went way against its original intention of being a hacking wild berserker. It went way against that. It's true, we still use two-handed weapons, or 2 weapons, I should say, dual-wielding, but it had become so methodical and so meticulous and so planned out that it was absolutely not a wild, furious berserker. That was just, if you still believe that, fair enough, but I don't think it takes much of a playtime to realise, oh, I do everything during this window. I have to prepare resources. I have to consider my moves. Do I have enough raging blows? Do I use my berserker here? What's my enrage uptime? All these kind of things needed to be taken into account, that during that Colossus Smash window, everything works perfectly. Something that became dramatically easier during the end of Mists of Pandaria. And then we did all that, and that would actually be a good way to gain most of our potential damage out of our Fury Warrior. So the return to Fury made it just absolutely fun for me again, and that's what's important to me with a warrior. My warrior is my golden child. It is. I'm not going to be playing it in Mists of Pandaria for the reasons that it still carries a tanking spec, and I have certain mental images of me being asked to tank and then doing well at it, and then being like, oh, can you tank a little bit more? I mean, I can't attend every raid, and that becomes an issue for me personally. Probably not the guild, but still, I don't want to be in that position. And Fury, going back to it, just is astounding, and I would rate it right up there with the Ret Paladin. Yeah, it's as good as the Ret Paladin for me in early WoD, which means as the gear progresses and things become better, it'll just get better and better and better. And the talent system itself is absolutely phenomenal. It is. It's a phenomenal talent system. It feels a little touch antiquated now with the changes of removal of Colossus Smash, Berserker Rage being able to activate Raging Blow again. If you didn't know, that was removed, and therefore maybe the spammy Bloodthirst isn't quite as needed now, as we get such modified crit levels that it's not too bad to make sure we have regular Raging Blows similar to the Fire Mages. So why wasn't it number 1 or 2 then? Arms. Fury is phenomenal, and I've no doubt that Fury will do very, very well. We also have to consider here Gladiator stance. Gladiator stance is very, very good. It is. I'm not a fan of it myself, right? That's okay. I don't have to be a fan of it to not understand that this thing is really good. It works. It absolutely works, and anybody who's been a long-term tank and struggled with the idea of doing really high, not only potential DPS, but actually producing those numbers, but always been comfortable with a tank, it's a wonderful solution. It really is. It's not something I felt was needed with a class that already had 2 DPS specs with talent systems that complemented them. I don't think it was necessary, but I understand the greatness of it. I've played it. It works out fine. It does its job. The numbers are there. The spells you would expect to do the damage do the damage. It has nice ways of modifying its damages with the shield charges, and all that really works nicely and keeps the warrior really high on my table. Arms is the big issue. Arms is diabolically bad. Really bad, and it hurts this class so much. Oh, God. Playing it feels painful in all accounts. It really does feel painful. It works, right? It works, but playing it is absolutely affliction. It's feral. That's what's the problem with it. That's what drags it down for me. And if it wasn't for the fact that Gladiator stands existed, I might have even ranked them 4 or 5, or maybe even lower than that, because it's no good relying on one spec. If World of Warcraft in its history has taught us anything, relying on one spec to be good all the time isn't going to work out very well. It's not. Things get more powerful, things get weaker, and suddenly the tide changes. You don't even have to change for your spec to become worse. And that's something you really need to consider. Gear itself could just force you out of a spec because your favorite and most beloved spec no longer works well with the kind of gearing you're getting. And that can happen over the course of an expansion very, very easily, and no doubt will happen. No doubt will happen. So that's going to rock in there. That's number 3, and that's why. I hope that answers your questions, guys. I truly do. We're getting set up here now for WOD launch. Have a great time, guys. Bye-bye.